Okay, so we're going to be working on creating anatomy of the nose. So I'm going to be using this one as my reference guide. Let's use this as my reference guide. So I'm going to dynamize this model first, this cube at the back. So let me make sure auto back face masking is turned on. Okay, then I can do dynamize on this. That feels way too much. Let's go somewhere around 60. Okay, that seems fine. Okay, so we can start with the blockout for this. First things first, we just need to get something that looks like I think I need to work on symmetry. I need to make sure symmetry is turned on, yes. Start by building something like this. So when we check this from the side view, we have something like it already looks close enough to the nose. Then what we have to do is just start using our move brush to kind of move things in place. So but before we do that, let me kind of show you a more realistic anatomical reference here. This is a good one. So we have something like this. So this is like a three-quarter view that gives us a clear idea. Now you see why the back facing is needed, so it won't be affecting the back side of the model. So we can use the move brush now to begin to move things in place. This tip should be a bit forward like so. Somewhere around there should be fine. Okay, probably need to raise this one up a bit more. Okay, but the main focus is actually the nose. That's like the main focus for this. Then the size needs to be, so if you check this from this view, and we actually got this one right, but the sides are not in the right place. So let's use our move to take a brush, smaller brush size, and do something like this. We're basically trying to get the silhouette of the nose first. Okay, so that seems fine. You can see how from the blocking we already have, I see this region here. From the blocking out, we already have that region there already. This is it. Then all we can do is to begin to accentuate some of the forms we have in there now. Like somewhere like carve this in, like so. Probably even pinch this in a bit more. So I'll do like an indentation instead. Take down the brush. I'm using the clay brush to kind of do this. Okay, that should be fine. So I will dynamize that and put that in a bit more again. Something like this. You can see the silhouette now. Once you have captured the silhouette like this on the bottom part, at least you're almost there with getting good proportions for the nose. But just to keep in mind that different ethnicity would have different shape of a nose. So we're trying to recreate this particular one that we're having here. So this one has more views to it. So let me kind of get this looking like this. So probably raise this one up a bit more. Alright, something like that should be fine. Okay. If you compare the nose ridge of a Caucasian male to that of an African, you notice that the Caucasian male has a more slim, has a smaller nose ridge compared to that of an African. So we can actually use a reference in here, like something like this, to illustrate that. You can see the definition of it, you can see the flow of it. more like a tear a teardrop. So just kind of get that deformation in there. No, that's way too much. Something like this should work just fine. And we also need to kind of create this part. It's not supposed to look like this down here. It's supposed to feel more rounded. So I'm using the standard brush now to kind of add something like so, that goes a bit inward like so, something like that. I also need to pinch this in downwards a bit more. So with the move brush, you need to have something like, let me kind of get this in place. Okay, probably just smooth this out. I think smoothing this should kind of fix it. So smoothing that out. Okay, something like so. I'll smooth this, smooth this inwards also. Okay. So now we need to kind of have, you can see this more of like a, let me use this reference instead. You can see how this is around here. So let's try to kind of do a block out of most of all the shape we're having here. Starting from the top part. But before we do that, let's just with the edge polish. We want to kind of have this like this kind of line around here. Okay, let me just use the them standard brush to kind of create that. No. Holding Alt just to create something like that. Okay, basically just kind of adding the planes, more like the planes of the nose. This is more or less like the planes of the nose. I think that's far too out. It should be like somewhere around here, like so. Then we use the edge polish to flatten this down a bit more. Something like that should be fine. Then we can use the same standard brush and create this carving in here. You can see this bone ridge here. This bone ridge here. I can see this indentation in here. So let's kind of use that them standard brush and try to recreate that. Something like so. The clay builder brush can kind of build a no, this particular part is not supposed to be symmetrical. But let me just work on the symmetrical part first before moving on. So with this now, you can see, and then you can see a cut line in here, like a separation in here. I don't know if you can see it in here, separation in here. So let's create that. We create that also. Should be like somewhere around here. Okay. No, that's way too deep. Something like that should be fine. Okay. Something that goes across like so also. Then underneath this also should be fine. Around here also. So this is the part that this is the actual part in here, this part in here. Though we don't have corresponding like eyes in here to kind of make that look more accurate, but let's just get that in there. I want to kind of block out even around this part also, this place to feel a bit smoother. Something like this. Probably with the edge polish, I'll just polish this like so. So now once we have this now blocked out, now once we just kind of smooth all of this back down, it's kind of give us a clear idea of, let me take this down, a clear idea of a realistic nose in there. Then we can now begin to build some extra details on top of this. So once kind of block this out, you're like, let's say 80% there to getting a realistic nose. The silhouette already looks like a realistic nose already. But there's still some things you need to fix in here, like underneath this part. So we need to have something, the clay builder brush, something that feels more rounded here. Now I'm trying to just kind of soften the entire model a bit more. Trying to soften things out. We already have like most of the landmarks are already in there. So the landmarks are already in there. Because we kind of use this to kind of use the planes of this to kind of create most of the landmark. So now for turn off the symmetry now, most nodes are not completely symmetrical. So let me kind of block out like this bone ridge around here, and I'll smooth that out. So now we have like a generic Caucasian male nose in here, except for one thing though. For the under parts, even from this view, this particular part is not supposed to be this sharp. It's supposed to have like a transition around here. It's supposed to be like a transition around here, something that goes like so. Yeah, something like this. So when you're kind of checking the model from the side view, you can see this in here. No, it's not mine feels too aggressive though. Maybe push that inwards a bit more. Smoothing all of this out. I'm just smoothing this out a bit more. Just make it feel a bit softer. But you notice that there's also like a bump around here also. So you need to create that goes across like so. So with the clay builder brush, I can just build something like this. It doesn't need to. Oh, I need to do this with symmetry turned on. With symmetry turned on, I can just build something like this in here and smooth that out. Okay, and this gives us a clear silhouette as to this being an actual nose. Though this part needs to be stretched out a bit more, like around this region. You see, it needs to feel like more like a circular, something like this. Yeah, something like this should be fine. Then I'll just smooth that out. Okay. I will need to kind of define this part of the nose a bit more. So with the move brush, I can push this down like so and kind of make it more defined. You can see this part in here. I want to kind of make it feel more defined. Probably we need to add some more fleshiness to it, something like this. Then I'll just define it like so. That part kind of goes across. See, you can see it in here. It goes across like so in here. So that should actually go across around here. Right, we just smooth this out. Just trying to soften everything now so it doesn't feel too aggressive. Okay. This part still feels. Okay, let's look for a reference image that shows the front view so we can actually capture that properly. I'm going to use the move brush to pinch this in and smooth that out. Okay, so I basically just use like the silhouette of the nose itself. So if you want to kind of change this from this the way it is right now to that of an African male, just look more similar to that of an African male. An African male does not have pointed nose, so this part needs to be pushed down. I need to push this down, smooth that out, and kind of extend the nose. Especially this center part needs to be a bit broader. Yeah, something like this. Then we can push this to the side. Then we already have something close enough and extend this out even more. Make it feel a bit more rounded. Yeah, something like so. And this part needs to be, let me just add something in here. Then we can use the clay builder brush to dig this in somewhere around this nature, then just extend this part out a bit and smooth it out. Then obviously, let me smooth this out. This part will come down a bit more. Let me just push this inwards. And this, the nose needs to be more open, so something like so. With them standard brush, let me use the standard brush instead. So we need to I want to kind of make this feel more, have like a line around here, something like so. Yeah, something like this that is more defined, and I'll smooth that out. Then with the move brush, this center part needs to come down like so. This pointed part shouldn't be that pointed. So you have something like no, look, that's way too down. Something like this should be just fine. And we also need to, let me use it standard brush instead. Kind of carve this more or less like having something around here like so, something like so should be fine. Yes, you can see how we kind of transition this from a Caucasian male to an African male. But depending on the character you're working on, some of the features might be slightly different. Just point this out. But we still need to have that kind of bone ridge around there. So this is, even though this is not too intense for a African male, something like this should still be there. Then you just kind of smooth that out. Then obviously need to make this feel more pronounced. Should be something like, since it comes across like this and goes across in here, something like this should be fine. Okay. So this is like the general idea. You can also transition this from this particular nose to something even different. Maybe let me just carve this necessarily label fold in here just to make it feel more realistic. Something like this. And I'll just smooth that out. Let me just fill it up a bit more. And just smooth that out. Okay. Something like this. Yeah, this is like general idea behind it. So you can actually use the same method to kind of create any nose of your choice. Any nose of your choice. The main thing is to kind of check this from this view, the side view, the front view, and making sure this view is also correct. Now I have an issue in here, so let me kind of fix this. This part needs to be a bit, that's way too much. Something like this, a bit softer. Okay, something like this should work just fine. But it completely depends on the character you're working on though. Maybe even change this with the move brush, maybe even push this down like so. Okay. So depending on the character you're working on, the facials or the ethnicity of that person, some of this might be much more different. So the idea is to kind of stick with your reference, but keeping in mind the silhouette of the nose. So once you kind of get this general block out of the silhouette, you can actually modify that to look specific to the nose you're going for. You can see how this one tapers at the edge at the end. So you can actually change this now to just be something like this. Push this in, push this back in. Then we'll have something similar to this already. We push this down and kind of get this. You can see how this part is pushed backwards a bit more, somewhat like so. Yeah, somewhat like so. So that's like general idea behind creating realistic nose. Once you kind of do the block out, make sure make sure you kind of follow this guideline. Okay, this is another guideline, this is another guide too. Make sure you kind of follow these guidelines. You can see the planes in here, a plane here, a plane here. More like this separated colors gives you a clear idea, and the sharp line around it gives you the idea of a plane. Once kind of create the block out of that plane, then you're basically good to go.